grade 6. This translates to 93% transition rate. Those who had not transited at that date were 5.47%, which translates to 209 runners. A total number of 1,155,369 out of 1,206,974 runners are reported to Form 1 as at 26 May 2023, which translates to a transition rate of 96%. A total of 12,051 of the remaining runners reported to TVET institutions, while 4,709 repeated standard 8 crash. This leaves a total of 34,845 runners, representing 3%, who are yet to report to any institution of running. The second part of the question, Honorable Speaker and honorable members, is that the high transition rate has been a result of various strategic measures that the ministry continues to implement, and of course we would like this to be 100%. Even the 3% which is out, we would like it to go up to 100%. Among the measures we have taken in order to ensure that we have a high transition rate is that we have been spearheading a multi-agency approach team in following the Ministry of Interior and National Administration, and also including the honorable members here to ensure that all our runners transit to their respective levels of basic education. We have done this, Honorable Speaker, using the grassroots approach to identify and locate the runners who don't report to school in time and ensure that they resume their studies. And as I've said, the chiefs, assistant chiefs, have been very, very helpful in this. We have done a mopping up exercise to ensure that we encourage 100% transition, and we have also issued guidelines which are designed to facilitate the 100% transition, which include the following: operationalization of our day wings in established boarding primary schools in urban setups and the densely populated areas. We have also been able to allow junior secondary schools within a proximity of 6 to 10 kilometers apart to operationalize shared school transport to ease access to runners and support a day schooling. We have encouraged the establishment of low-cost boarding schools in areas with highly scattered settlements or pastoralist communities where runners have the risk of disability and others subject to availability of funds. We have also been implementing affirmative action in geographically expansive areas, low density and insecurity-prone areas to allow primary schools that lack the requisite enrollment and the infrastructural capacity to domicile junior secondary schools. And as well, directing our runners to be excluded from school uniform, because we said it's not mandatory that we have the new uniform when they transition to another level. The capitation rate members are aware. In the junior secondary school, we set it at 15,042, and also in senior secondary school, we set it at 22,240, and also running materials, particularly textbooks. We have achieved a ratio, apart from few areas, of 1-to-1 ratio in provision of textbooks, and also providing school feeding program in order to ensure that those, particularly in arid and semi-arid areas, are able to access school.
It could have been
So
me.
Honorable Chairperson, Honorable Speaker, sir, those are some of the measures we have taken, and those are the numbers that we have so far who have transitioned the two levels in our basic education.
Very numb.
Thank you.
I feel sad that this has happened. I was very happy here, and I don't know what's in front now. I just hope that
Thank you,
it's
Honourable
going
Speaker.
to be for the good.
I was
We're
only adding to
fortunate
what
enough
Honourable
to be
Member
alive.
Moro had said about the sanitary pads. When he talked about condoms, I wanted just to clarify that condoms are voluntary, but when it comes to menstrual, we were born with it and we live that way. Thank you.
Question time. You are out of
I was
order.
just.
You are out of order. You can approach Honorable Kimana and lecture him on that. John Mutunga.
Honourable Speaker, I rise to congratulate the CS Education for the good work he's doing. But Honourable Speaker, all the members here agree with me that the ministry is facing a very difficult time to implement this new education system. Honourable Speaker, I happen to be involved in making sure that it happens because I'm an investor in education. But I can assure you that I do not know in this country who is clear. And I would like the Honourable CS to tell us the extent to which the ministry is clear on the expected products from this system, where they are going to go, the kind of professionals we are going to produce, and what we shall do with the others.
And
Honourable Speaker,
amongst the living.
you can tell us that, because we all seem to be guiding our children into something we are not clear as a country. Thank you, Honourable Speaker.
My young brother says I'm going to prison. He rings me 10 o'clock every Sunday morning.
Thank the
And
CS
I've been sending the
and also to ask this question
scandal,
on each of the AFTAM.
You're going to end
Honourable
up in
Speaker,
prison. I'm not going to bail you out.
AFTAM has become mandatory in our education calendar.
I've been sending me 10.
My question
Young
is,
brother says I'm going to prison.
what added advantage is the AFTAM getting to adding to our planners in this country?
Me 10 o'clock every Sunday morning.
Because, Mr. Speaker,
and
you find a
I've been
kid
sending the
who comes from Turkana and he or she is schooling in Mombasa County. Is given 3 days to go for AFTAM.
I'm not going to bail you
All
out.
the way from Mombasa to Turkana East.
We know where we're going.
Until 3 days.
We moved again in
And from
18
Turkana to Mombasa, you can travel for 3 days. That is one way.
That is
Coming
why I was
back
in the 19
3 days.
time.
That's total of 6 days.
And we haven't had anybody
How
come and speak
fast
to us.
will this child travel from Mombasa to Turkana for this AFTAM?
Councillors come.
This AFTAM has
Which they
become
should
very
do.
expensive
They
to
should
the
come
parents,
have a chat with
and
us.
parents
It's
go,
quite
kids
easy.
go to school, they come back. Some of them just, the AFTAM get them on the way, and they go back without even reaching home. It is even becoming dangerous to our learners, because some of our learners meet even strangers on the way back home in the name of the AFTAM. So can the CS clarify what the AFTAM is adding to the education of our learners in this country, both in primary school and secondary schools? Thank you, Speaker.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Honourable Speaker.
Hold, Minister, sorry. Emmanuel Wangwe, you'll be the last on this.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, allow me to appreciate the Cabinet Secretary for the good work he has done, and so far wish him well. Honourable Speaker, the Cabinet Secretary has put it very clear that there is very good progress in terms of 100% transition, but my concern, Honourable Speaker, is how to retain the 100% transition into the secondary schools. And especially, Honourable Speaker, I wish the Cabinet Secretary to clarify on what his ministry is doing so far especially to the 2021 Form 1 students under the program Elimu Scholarship Program, where, Honorable Speaker, the Jomo Kenyatta Foundation is yet to remit the funds as we speak today. All the students who went into the Form 1 secondary school 2023 under that program, through his ministry, Honorable Speaker, are yet to receive payment. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Cabinet Secretary, you can answer those.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to assure my friend, the Honorable Mutunga, that CPC, after the lower level, that is the junior secondary, they transition to senior secondary, where there are three pathways. The three pathways, one is STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The second other pathway is social sciences, also commonly known as humanities. The third pathway, Honorable Speaker, is on sports, visual, and performing art. Those who are good in that area will also be able to find an opportunity to pursue their talents in that particular area. And as we said, this is a system with a proper value system which will be able to inculcate certain values to our young people and also get the kind of competencies and skills which have not been available, and they will be able to compete favorably with the rest of the world, and it is the best way to go. So it is level such that when the year comes for them to transition to universities, our universities will be well prepared. Half term, from the time you and me were in school, there used to be half term, because a term goes about 90 to 100 days. Emotionally, if you subject these people continuously without giving them a break, particularly in secondary schools, senior secondary schools, it also gets us into certain other problems, like strikes in schools, some even getting into certain other activities. So emotionally, it stabilizes them when they get probably 3-4 days half term, a break, and it is normally optional, such that there are those who come from far, who can be able to prefer to remain in school. So it doesn't have to mean that each and every one of them has to go. We have been getting the support, RIM scholarships, affecting about 12,000 of our Kenyans, those who come from poor backgrounds. We delayed in getting the funds from the various agencies, various donors, but I think from 2 weeks ago, we have now been able to get the funds, and those who were beneficiaries, we have been able to disperse the funds to the various schools where they joined for their secondary school education, and we will be able to continue with the program because those who are supporting this program are actually supportive of it. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister, I think the issue of the member for Turkana is whether it is prudent for a child schooling in a national school in Mombasa to be late to go home for half term for 3 days, when it takes 3 days to travel, 3 days to come back. I think the policy issue should be whether you can let such children remain in schools during that half term, as those who can go home can go. Nicholas, isn't that your issue? Yes, Minister.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Actually,
as a parent, and I'm sure and as a leader, you understand that children from very poor families who are brilliant and go to national schools travel across the country. And to tell them to go to half term for 3 days is actually not very reasonable.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. That's why I said it is actually optional, such that not each and every one of those students goes for half term. They can opt to remain. Some, like the case he has said, if it is a child for Churukana who is in Mombasa, unless the parents probably are of a category where they are able, and during that particular time they can be able to go to Mombasa such that they take the child from school. If it is the child traveling all the way, it will not be able to make sense, and it's an issue which I agree with, that we should be able to take up so that those ones who don't have that kind of arrangement can be able to remain in school during that particular time, because we have also that option.
Thank you. Member for Bonchari, Charles Onchoke.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to take the opportunity to appreciate the Cabinet Secretary and his team for appearing and take our questions. Could the Cabinet Secretary provide a status report on the construction of classrooms under the competency-based curriculum phase 2 for the following 10 secondary schools in the Bonchari constituency that were identified in 2022 to host junior secondary schools? 1, Bishop Charles Mugendi, Nyamukenye, Botoro Evangelical Lutheran Church of Kenya, Ekerubo, Etirio Girls, St. Andrews Mugumo, St. Anne's Nyangoge, St. Charles Ruhonge Gesero, St. Francis Nyasagati, St. Peter Suneka, and St. Vincent Omwari. 2, state when the construction of classrooms in Botoro, Ekerubo, and Mugumo secondary schools that were to be ready for use in January 2023 will commence, and state when the ministry will pay the contractors awarded tenders to construct classrooms in the 7 secondary schools above where works are being completed. And 3, outline the plans that the ministry has put in place to construct adequate classrooms for junior secondary schools in the Bonchari constituency in order to ease congestion that is adversely affecting learning, and specify clear timelines for the same. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Cabinet Secretary.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. This is something, again, affecting each and every member of Parliament.
Yes, 1 minute. Yes, Donya, what's the problem?
I'm the joyrider.
You are?
I had said that.
Pardon?
Joyrider.
Yeah, but the joyrider comes after the question has been answered.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker and honorable members. This is one other thing that affects each and every member of Parliament in this House, because members, as you will remember, we had phase 1 of this program that covered each and every one of your constituencies, and a total of 7,600,000,062 million was utilized in phase 1, which was done between, I think, 2020, 2021, and a total number of 9,721 classrooms in secondary schools were built. And those ones are complete, and the payments have been done. We don't have anything pending. In the phase 2, which the honorable member for Bonchari has been able to raise a question, apart from this area where a total of 12 million is supposed to be used for the classrooms that were given in Bonchari. Countrywide, the total number of classrooms which are supposed to be done are 6,495, out of which the contractors who have been contracted to do those classrooms are 6,371 contractors. That is phase 2. The total cost of phase 2 is 2,542,000,000, and a number of those classrooms are complete. A few are not complete, and we are hoping that before the end of the financial year, they should be complete. For Bonchari, the status is as given in the table. Botoro Secondary is 80% complete. Kerubo is about 90% complete. St. Andrews Mugumo is at one classroom is complete and the other one is 75% complete. St. Anne's Nyangoge, 2 classrooms are complete. St. Charles Ruanga Gesero is complete, the 1 classroom. St. Francis Nyasagati is complete. St. Peter Suneka is complete. And St. Vincent Umari is also complete. The second part of the question, Honorable Speaker, is that we are expecting that the schools will be completed before 30th June, and the 7 schools which have been completed, the ministry is supposed to pay a total of 12,611,521. Of course, you are aware the total cost of a classroom was being constructed at a cost of 788,221. And we are here to pay the contractors, not only for Bonchari, but even in other constituencies. We are expecting that the National Treasury will be able to give us the 2.5 billion so that we are able to make payment before the end of the financial year so that it is not carried over as a pending bill. The third part of the question, Honorable Speaker, is that there are 56 junior secondary schools in the Bonchari constituency with a total of 3,899 runners. Generally, each of the schools has 1 classroom for grade 7 runners, and the number of classrooms where we experience a shortage is 22 classrooms. And I request again, Honorable Speaker, that we will be able to partner with the members of Parliament. In this, we are making an engagement with the World Bank. Hopefully, we should be able to get the funds where we'll be able to do integrated resource centers and also do sanitation facilities in some of the schools. But again, as you access your CDF funds, because your shortage in your constituency is only 22 classrooms, and I hope that we should be able to partner. You do part of it, and probably once we access funds, we can also be able to do a few. Thank you, Honorable Speakers.
Tonya, now you can joyride.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You find out that in junior secondary school, they have a new syllabus. They have new teachers, as much as they are not enough. They too have a new uniform. My question to Waziri is the ministry having any plans of having a new administration block for junior secondary school learners? To conclude with the issue of sanitary pads, Mr. Speaker, I would wish the CS to clarify. He told us that as members, we consider that budget. When we consider that budget, are the sanitary pads still going to be issued through the Ministry of Education, or they will be brought back to us as women members of Parliament? Thank you.
Gideon Ochanda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when the CS is giving us these details in terms of what was done in the name of classrooms, all of them were done in secondary schools. Where we are now, the grade 7 are still in primary schools. So it means that there are infrastructure that is basically not in use. So can the CS tell us in terms of projection, are we seeing grade 7 and 8 getting back to primary school, or are we seeing grade 7 and 8 joining the secondary schools where the infrastructure is as at now? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Sitting next to Nicholas, I can't see you clearly, Honorable Member. You are honorable. Can you give him the microphone? Honorable.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My name is Honorable Protas Akuja, MP for Loima constituency, Tupara County.
I know you. Sorry,
yes.
you're sitting so far.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question to the CS for Minister of Education is regarding the issue of junior secondary school. And this is specifically on ASAL areas. ASAL areas, JSS is suffering from many problems. You find that in those areas, one teacher is posted to one junior secondary school, and this teacher teaches 14 subjects, and the same teacher is the principal of that particular school. You wonder what time this teacher manages the school and what time he teaches this particular school. And now the question is, does the ministry have any plan to deploy more teachers to this junior secondary school? And secondly, the issue of laboratories. I'm told the CBC is centered on practical science practicals, and this junior secondary school do not have these laboratories. So does the ministry have any plan to construct laboratories in these junior secondary schools to avoid gaps? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister, you can answer those three.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. If I start with the last question, I want to assure members, because we are aware that indeed junior secondary schools require laboratories, because we are emphasizing on STEM sciences, and that's why we are engaging, as I said, the World Bank. And our engagement, we hope in another 4 months, they should be concluded. And out of the funds that we are accessing from World Bank, we should be able to do at least 40% of the total requirement of laboratories countrywide, and progressively we will be able to mitigate on this infrastructural requirement of laboratories. Other areas, we are aware, and if Honorable Speaker, the member can be able to confirm the numbers that were given to certain areas, particularly during the recruitment of teachers. In other areas, we gave more, and I think we will be able to continue doing that until such a time that we make sure we are able to alleviate on this program of teacher shortage. I would like, probably quietly, the Member of Parliament to share, because I've gone to a number of these schools, I've gone to a number of these areas, including other areas. We have been to Turukana, we went to a number of junior secondary schools, Marsabit, Wajir, and all those areas. And I've not been to a school where I find one single teacher teaching 14 subjects. And kindly, probably you can come to the office we share, because there might be those isolated cases which we require to give consideration to. So that one, Honorable Member, kindly let us engage so that we can be able to get a remedial measure on that. Classrooms in secondary schools, Honorable Speaker, I want to make it very clear here that indeed, during this particular time, we had a very severe shortage of classrooms in our secondary schools. So even the number of classrooms that have been built in secondary schools are still not enough. Because if you go to each and every one of these secondary schools, still they require more classrooms. So it's not that they are not being used. actually a number of them are being used up to capacity, and even as we move forward, we are looking into a situation where we require to build more classrooms. There is no single school where we build classrooms which are not being used as of now. New teachers, Honorable Speaker and honorable members, as we move forward, I have made an undertaking that we will be able to recruit more in the coming years as this August House allocates us the necessary funds to do so, because we are aware that indeed we don't have enough teachers in a number of our schools. A new administration block for junior secondary school, we have issued guidelines for now. That will be another expense where honorable members, you will be able to agree with me, the ministry, that we don't have such funds. That is why we said both primary school and the junior secondary school, we have the same kind of administration as of now. The only thing we have changed a little bit is that they have separate school accounts. The junior secondary school operates a separate account from the primary school. But the principal, as of now, we have one principal. As we move ahead, we might change where we have a separate administration for the junior secondary and also for the primary. Otherwise, as of now, it is one principal, one administration block for now, and also, but separate accounts. We have also the board of management. We have one set which is the 17 out of the 17. We have one set which is in charge of the accounts of the junior secondary school and another one in charge of the primary schools. Sanitary parts, I think I've made an undertaking that we have had a discussion with the members of parliament, particularly the county members of parliament, where my member of parliament is also one of them. And once the committee of parliament, the committee of budget, and the committee of education makes a decision, that is exactly what we have to do. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Edwin Mugo. Sorry, yes, Dr. Nyikal? Yes, let's take one from Dr. Nyikal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for making me a third joyrider. But, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate what our former colleague is doing and how complex the work is. But in reality, if you spend time, this time we were on recess and went around the constituencies, we are having a very hard start. The conditions are actually worse than what we are saying. In terms of teachers, infrastructure for classrooms, now laboratories. So my question to the CS is, can we have in every constituency what the plans are for the number of junior secondaries that are there this time, and those ones we can count, the ones that are coming next year, and two, can we have the number of classrooms that are actually expected in the junior secondary? And three, are we going to have laboratories or workshops in junior secondary? That one, there is no clarity whether we are going to have laboratories or workshops. And whatever it is, can we also have that? So that when we plan with CDF, we actually fall in place with your sub-county directors of education, so that there is some harmony on how we use our CDF to support the junior secondary program. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Waziri.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nyikar. We have made it clear that we require laboratories in the junior secondary schools. And that's why we are having the engagement with World Bank and also requesting the honorable members of parliament in your respective constituencies to prioritize constructing laboratories, because what we will do this coming financial year is 40% of what is required. So in this coming financial year, from the ministry side, we will be able to do the 40%, and probably the other financial year progressively as we proceed, we will also be able to do some kind of percentage. And I hope once you also access the CDF funds, you will be able to do some reparatories within your areas. Second is that the classrooms in junior secondary schools. You know, Honorable Speaker, we domiciled the existing primary schools to be junior secondary schools. And in those particular schools, we had class 7, we had class 8. So it is only that there are a few primary schools which did not qualify to be junior secondary schools, and hence the pupils in that particular school go to a nearby school. So the experience, the classroom shortage we have is not as big as such because we had existing classrooms, because out of the 28,000 primary schools, it's only about 5,000 that did not qualify to be junior secondary schools. But again, we have a report from each and every sub-county, from our sub-county directors, and moving forward, I think we should be able to give you this report we share, and we see what we can be able to do from the point of view of the ministry and from the CDF, what you can be able to do in your areas, because we also have a report on each and every sub-county indicating the shortage we have in terms of classrooms, like the example of Bonchari, which I gave. In the entire sub-county, the shortage we have is 22 classrooms. So in each and every of your sub-counties, we can also be able to provide that information so that you know the shortage you have. As we move forward, you can also be able to provide from your respective CDF funds. As areas, Honorable Speaker, I think I made a commitment that we are doing something about as areas, particularly also giving more funds to Rukanat. The other day we gave 100 million, where we are expanding the existing low-cost boarding schools. We are having one in Laikipia, which the Honorable Member Laikipia North, through sponsors and other CDF funds. We are also opening a boarding school, which we will support as government, and I think we will be able to assist as much as possible those areas that are us areas. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Edwin Mugo, member for Mathioya.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to ask question number 127, stroke 2023. Could the Cabinet Secretary, 1, explain why there is a delay in the distribution of books flagged off on January 27, 2023 for grade 7 junior secondary school learners in public schools, noting that the books ought to have been distributed by February 17, 2023. 2, provide a report detailing the capitation grant received towards purchase of the textbooks and the actual amount spent on the purchase of textbooks in public secondary schools across the country. 3, indicate the strategies the ministry has put in place, if any, to address the challenges faced by the National Education Management Information System, NEMIS, expounding on the issue of variance in the number of learners in the system versus the actual learners in certain schools, hence reducing capitation in some schools and occasioning overcapitation in others. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. At present, the book distribution for junior secondary schools across the country stands at 90%. The distribution is of 992,884 books to 18,605 schools in the country. In Mathioya constituents, for example, the distribution is at 95% across all running areas. The balance of 5% will be distributed before the end of this month. There has been delays in meeting the initial deadline of 17th February 2023 for various reasons, and specifically, Mr. Speaker, we had 10 publishers who were contracted to supply the books, and there was a delay in providing the books. The 10 publishers are as given in my answer. I don't have to mention each and every one of them, but their delay on their part was attributed to the fact that we have only 10 capable and competent publishers who are capable of printing, and they were not able, because of the quantity and the number of materials that they were supposed to print, to supply the said materials within the timeline that we expected them to do so. And the entire copies of textbooks, I think, were over 17 million, and also during the time that we had given them the contract, some of them were not able to get the required wood quality papers. They had to import from other countries, and hence there was a delay because of that. And thirdly, also in supply of these textbooks, some parts of the country, like North Rift, when we supply, we have to get security personnel, and because of the kind of insecurity that was going on, there are areas that were not accessible, and we are trying to access those particular areas as of now. And Mr. Speaker, we have also said the distribution of books is actually detected from the capitation from each and every runner, which is provided for 3-day secondary schools and these other secondary schools. And this particular year, we have also said the amount that we will be able to detect from each and every runner to make sure that we are able to provide the required books to all our schools. And the second set of the question was on, we have also given a breakdown on how the books have been supplied, and I think that is in the appendix, which we have been able to supply, indicating where we are and how much we have been able to supply, and those that we are yet to supply, because the publishers and the printers have made a commitment that the percentage we are remaining with, it is only this very short time that we will be able to provide where we have not been able to provide. And the second set of the question is on NEMIS, and as members are aware, the registration of both runners with and without party certificates is captured in NEMIS, but those who access the funds...
My name is Tom Odula, and I'm an investigative reporter from Kenya.
As per 60 June 2023,
for 20 years, I've covered crime and terrorism in my country, from the Westgate shopping mall attack in Nairobi to the war in Somalia.
I don't need to beat my woman.
But nothing could have prepared me.
Honorable Speaker, are 3,670,839, which is 95% of the runners on the system. The remaining 212,300 runners.
If my whole life really was pegged on this opportunity, I can only imagine how that encounter would have unfolded.
Jeremiah's behavior with Katie follows a pattern out
because the necessary details or party certificates
into the weeding
provided so far.
It's one of the toughest jobs on the farm.
That figure, and progressively it improves because we
the lady, the kind of work she's doing
security, our chiefs and
the hardest labor
assistant
in the plantation. Her body will inevitably start breaking down.
So that this number
every day
she'll
be going home with pain.
Minimized, so that each and every
Katie's
person in
back
school
begins to hurt.
Is able to access capitation funds. Otherwise, 5% of this is the only number which I hope as
Kenya is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Justice is bought by the highest bidder.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
What would you say to the British consumers who drink the tea you pick.
Wacha kunywa chai kwa sababu vitu vinafanyika kwa chai ni vitu mingi na ni vitu vibaya sana. Mpaka siku ya kitu itafanya nini? Itaisha.
Upatilisho hiyo kwa sababu tunaumia kwa ajabu. Watu waangalie kabisa, sisi wakina mama tunateseka sana.
If these multinational companies take responsibility and clamp down on abusive managers, only then will the women they employ be able to work without fear of being harassed and brutally exploited.
For a very comprehensive answer, my only concern is on the fixed amount that is normally given to each school, because as you are aware, you know, I mean, there is this policy by the Minister of one child, 1 shilling. But you know, if you don't give this fixed amount, the schools that have fewer learners, like these secondary schools, will be affected, especially on the infrastructure issues. So maybe I would want to urge the CS to see what they can do to increase that fixed amount that should be given to each school, especially for administrative activities and for some other basic issues like sports. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Ruku.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I want to thank the CS for all the questions he has answered. Mr. Speaker, there are quite a number of schools in my constituency in Mbere North, whereby the congestion in the dormitories, you find that one cubicle is accommodating more than 6 students. And we wonder, Mr. Speaker, whether we have education officers who are responsible enough to ensure that all the schools are managed in a proper manner, so that the board of management or the board of management, they don't allow the schools to be completely duplicated.
The mother of world
boys and girls in those schools are getting extremely congested.
In early 2020, she was living as a single mother, hoping to build a life for herself and her 3 kids. But her ex-husband, Boniface Mureithi,
the guidelines within the Ministry of Education arouse a situation whereby we can get 1 room shared by more than 6 students.
I've never felt
where we have
so sad.
1 bed with
when we got here, the kid was
double
about the age of my son.
3 double deckers.
3 deckers.
3 deckers. 3 deckers. Where
trying
1
to
bed
protect
at the
his
bottom,
mother,
middle, and another.
because he's still traumatized
boy or girl sleeping
by
at the
what
top.
he saw that night.
That is a situation.
And so now the boy is afraid of any man who comes close to his mother.
Experience. Thank you.
I am left without words.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question to the Cabinet Secretary is, Eldoret is considered as a workstation under municipality, and the teachers who work in that environment are supposed to benefit from enhanced house allowance. Unfortunately, there is 1 school in the municipality named Chebarus Primary where the teachers are not benefiting from the same enhanced house allowance. So I wanted the minister to clarify, the Cabinet Secretary to clarify why they are disadvantaged. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Lakini nakuacha na mkononi mwake Waris Kimathi akufahamishe mengi kuhusiana na ukatili mkononi. Hadi siku nyingine na kutakia usiku mwema. Kila siku niite Sam Yadika.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mnamo mwezi Juni mwaka 2021, serikali ya Kenya iliahidi kutumia dola za Marekani milioni 23 kupigana na dhuluma za kijinsia haswa dhidi ya wanawake na wasichana wadogo. Katika taarifa hiyo iliyokuwa na ahadi nzito 12, Kenya iliahidi kuzidisha kiwango cha fedha hizo kufikia dola milioni 50 kufikia mwaka wa 2026, muda wa miaka 5 tu kutoka sasa. Licha ya ahadi hizo za serikali, visa vya dhuluma za kijinsia vinaendelea kuwakumba wanawake na wasichana wadogo manyumbani walikozaliwa, katika ndoa, shuleni, kanisani na misikitini, ofisini na hata barabarani. Mwaka jana, wakati wa Kenya wakipambana na jinamizi la korona, visa vya dhuluma za kijinsia viliongezeka kwa 92% katika kipindi cha miezi 6 pekee. Katika jamii, miji na vitongoji vingi nchini, wanawake wamenyimwa sauti na kugeuzwa mifuko ya ngumi na wanaume wenye hasira, chuki na ukatili. Visa vya dhuluma ya kijinsia vimekuwa donda ndugu linalowasambaratisha maisha ya wengi kote nchini, katika vijiji na mijini. Look Up TV ipo katika mtaa wa vitongoji duni wa Kibra, ambapo jamaa aliye katika mstari wa mbele wa vita dhidi ya dhuluma hizi ananieleza kwamba baadhi ya watu wanaohusika na kuwabaka wasichana na watoto, haswa katika wakati wa ghasia za uchaguzi mkuu, ni askari wa polisi. Sudais Ali Mohamed anajulikana kama Sudi, anakoishi mtaani Kibra jijini Nairobi. Kwa miaka 22 sasa, Sudi amekuwa akizunguka katika mitaa ya Kibra, Kangemi na Mathare. Wakaji wa hadharani inaendelea kukithiri kila mwaka.
Wakati wa vita wa 2007, watu wengi wamekuwa wakinajisi. Bondo najiuliza kila saa, Bondo inafanya mtu
Nimerudi Kibra kwa siku ya pili kumpata dada mmoja ambaye aliachana na mumewe miaka 2 iliyopita baada ya kuvumilia miaka 12 ya kupigwa na kudhulumiwa na mumewe huyo. Jina lake ni Zulaiha Yusuf, mama wa watoto 3, ambaye ameanzisha shirika la kuwaokoa wanawake kutokana na dhuluma za ndoa linalojulikana kama Women Beyond Borders. Sawa na wasichana wengi wanaozaliwa mtaani Kibra, Zulaiha alizaliwa katika familia ya kipato cha chini, akiwa mmoja wa watoto 8. Kutokana na ukosefu wa fedha, Zulaiha hakuweza kupata kisomo cha kumsaidia kupanda ngazi za maisha, jambo ambalo lilimpelekea kutoka nyumbani kwao kuishi kama chokoraa jijini Nairobi na hatimaye kuishia kupata ujauzito akiwa na umri mdogo zaidi.
Somi kwa mjamzito, akakataa, akaruka hiyo ujauzito. So yes, nikaanza sasa tena kutamu.
Like this particular year, in order for us to manage the extra curricular activities,
za kudumu kwa tatizo hilo ambalo limewalemaza wengi.
Youth sports, because of the
sasa unaona wewe unaona kama mnyonge ama umekuwa mse wengine tu so different ama umekuwa nao against them sasa.
Wakati serikali ya Kenya ikiendelea kutoa ahadi chungu nzima kwa wasichana na wanawake wanaopitia ukatili mikononi mwa wanyanyasaji mitaani na vijijini, mashujaa kama Zulaiha na Sudi wanaendelea kuliunga giza wakitafuta suluhu za kudumu kwa tatizo hilo ambalo limewalemaza wengi, kufuta tabasamu kutoka kwa nyuso za maelfu na kuzima koroboi za maisha ya wanawake wasio na hatia yoyote. Waris Kimathi, Look Up TV, mtaani Kibra, Nairobi.
They should be given like other teachers within the municipality. Special schools, we give them an enhanced capitation of 37,000 when the normal ones we give 22 million. And what we normally do, even when we find we get the money in phases, we normally start with the special needs school. So I'm sure that in the course of this week, because we are accessing capitation funds, we will be able to consider those special needs school in giving them the amount of capitation that is designated for those schools. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Sir.
The question by Honorable Gabriel Kagombe, I have a request from him that Kawanjiku from Kiambaa will ask the question on his behalf. Kawanjiku, go ahead. Give Kawanjiku the microphone.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to ask the question 245 of 2023.
We journey across the dunes and the sweltering sands of the Sahara to bring you stories
pursued by the government to ensure that children with autism and autism spectrum
We journey across the dunes and the sweltering sands of the Sahara to bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope from one of the harshest environments on the planet.
In availing alternative examination modes or avenues for autistic children who are not able to undertake written examinations. Number 3, confirm if the ministry intends to incorporate all assessment of autistic
Join
children
us as we explore how climate change is affecting Africa's largest
as
desert.
well as the engagement of teachers who are specifically trained to handle children with autism. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir. The set questions I have from the crack of the National
The
Assembly,
Sahara,
which is here,
one of the harshest environments on the planet. Dry, hot, and desolate. The Sahara stretches for 9 million square kilometers, covering much of North Africa. Varying from seas of dunes to sculpted sandstone plateaus, it can be a vast and merciless environment. Yet for centuries, people have survived across these sun-baked plains. The nomads of the Sahara, masters of resilience, efficiency, and adaptation.
Minister, there is a question coming.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I'd like to take this opportunity to pass.
We've traveled about 600 kilometers from Nouakchott to the capital of Mauritania to find the nomads who roam the Sahara. Now we're just nearing the Zagra region, where we'll hopefully meet with some goat herders who will tell us about life in this challenging landscape.
Naisula, could the Cabinet Secretary state the amount of money that was disbursed to each private university for government-sponsored students in the financial year 2022-2023, and the amount of money proposed to be allocated to each private university in the financial year.
Paleolithic evidence suggests that the area around Chingeti has been occupied for thousands of years. Rock art found in nearby caves indicate that the land was once a grassy savanna where giraffe roamed alongside the local people and their cattle.
Detailing the number per year against each private university and the number of self-sponsored students in each university per year. 3, confirm why the practice was entertained even when there are no sufficient spaces, even when there are sufficient spaces in public universities. And finally, explain how the new model will ensure the survival of public universities, given that the cost of courses priced by the public universities against the undercutting offered by private universities. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Minister.
Yeah, thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, sir. 1, there are 3 main reasons that inform the policy of admitting government-sponsored students in private universities. The first reason, Honorable Speaker, is the legal framework. The Universities Act 2012 established the Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service Board as per Section 56(1) of the Act, which provides that the placement service shall coordinate the placement of the government-sponsored students to universities and colleges. Section 2 of the same Act defines a university as a university to which a charter has been granted. There is no distinction as to whether it is private or public for purposes of placement of government-sponsored students. At the same time, Honorable Speaker, sir, Section 56(3) of the Act requires the placement service to establish a criteria to enable students access the courses for which they applied, taking into account the students' qualifications and the listed priorities. The law therefore placed value on the choice of a student for purposes of placement, and this is the legal framework for which private universities were based. And I will request the honorable members also to vote the hazard, because there was a serious discussion in this honorable house in 2012, and the honorable members, one, if you look at the answer, there was an argument to put the public, and the public item was actually removed by this honorable house, and therefore it provided the loophole in the legal framework for what was now done, admitting government-sponsored students to private universities, to be done since the year subsequent to that act. Mr. Speaker, sir, before 2016, admission to public universities was determined by their available bed capacity. Due to the limited capacity in our public universities, the cutoff points for admission were increased in successive years, rocking out many eligible students. For example, in the year 2014-2015, 165,000 candidates had C+ and above, against a capacity of only 63,740. This, so only 38.6% access university education, while 61.4% were left out. In the following year, 2015-2016, 61% of those with a C+ and above were also left out. In this regard, placement of private universities was useful in helping to address the capacity constraints in our public universities and increasing access to university education. Consequently, in the year 2016-2017 placement cycle, for example, the percentage of students placed in universities grew to 93.46% from 39.02%. The preceding year, table Q007, which I've given there, shows the percentage of students placed when capacities in both private and private universities were utilized. So you can see in these years, the number has actually gone up because we kind of created room for others to get into private universities, and the number went to 93.46%. In addition, Mr. Speaker, private universities also play a critical role in increasing capacity for competitive and priority programs, both locally and internationally. For example, the total capacity declared for Bachelor of Nursing in the year 2022 candidature in both private and public universities is 1,520, with 555, which is 36.5%, being in private universities. So these Kenyans who are 555 who want to do nursing would not have gotten a place because we don't have capacity in our public universities for this particular course, nursing, because it's a technical area, to access this kind of education if we do not have certain private universities that were offering this particular course. The second part of the question, Honorable Speaker, is that after placement of students to universities, the university fund determines and allocates the available funding in accordance with the differential unit cost of the degree program, commonly known as DUC. The DUC has 14 programs, program clusters for undergraduate degree courses. The number of government-sponsored students enrolled in each cluster is used to determine the allocation of the available funds as allocated by the National Assembly. Honorable Speaker, in the financial year 2022-2023, a total of 89,644 government-sponsored students in private universities were funded at a cost of 3 billion 174 million, 3 billion 174 million 791 3 billion 174 791 604. This translates to 18.11% of the differential unit cost. The recommending funding per student in both public and private universities is 80% of the DUC. So you can now be able to get the difference between 80% and 18.11. The amount that was disbursed to each private university of the government-sponsored students in the financial year 2022-2023 is indicated in Table 9, Q9, which indicates the amount, honorable members and honorable speaker, that was disbursed to each and every university out of almost the 3.2 billion that you did allocate through the means of education. For the financial year 2023-2024, we projected that 18,430 students will be completing their studies, those from private universities. Consequently, the continuing students to be funded in private universities will be 71,214. If the amount allocated remains the same as the allocation in the financial year 2022-2023, then the 71,214 students will be funded at an average of 22% of the DUC. That is the differential unit cost, as opposed to 80%, which of course was the figure which we had committed as a government to be able to allocate. The amount that will be disbursed to each university for the continuing students will depend on the number of students to be funded in the university and the programs that they are pursuing. Because you know, like the most expensive course we have in the country is dentistry, which in Nairobi University goes at 740,000. So if government was to give 80% of 740,000, you will be able to see how that, how much it will be. I wish to inform the House, Mr. Speaker, that in the financial year 2023-2024, government scholarships and the new funding university model will not be available to students who choose to join private universities. And I repeat, government scholarships will not be available with effect from this coming financial year for students who make a choice to join private universities. Such students will either be eligible to apply for loans from the Higher Education Loan Support. And the third part of the question is that the number of self-sponsored students in private universities has been declining in successive years since the year 2019-2020 academic year, where it was 54.8%, and compared to the 2022-2023 academic year, where now it has declined to 20%. This can be explained by the fact that an increasing number of students in private universities have been funded by the government in the successful years, and we have also provided a table indicated as Q10, which provides the details of the enrollment. For the same reason of increased government sponsorship, there has also been a decline in the number of self-sponsored students in public universities, from 42% in the year 2019-2020 academic year to 21% in the year 2022-2023 academic year, as shown in table Q11, which we have been able to indicate very, very clearly. Whether there are enough spaces in public universities Honorable Speaker, we have said, as indicated in Section 56(1) of the Universities Act, it is the one which mandated the Kenya universities and colleges Center Placement Service to place government-sponsored students in those private universities. The definition of a university distinguishing public from private, and I think that is one of the things that informed the decision that was taken then. The placement service has continued to place government students to universities and programs according to their choices, and therefore also something that we have now since rectified, and we will also be sending certain other amendments in due course to this House for consideration. The final part of the question, Honorable Speaker, is that since the financial year 2017-2018, university students have been funded based on the differentiated unit cost of programs. The government was expected to fund 80% of the cost, while the household fund 20%. But over the years, the number of students placed to universities has grown tremendously and remarkably so, posing challenges to the government's ability to meet the funding obligation. Indeed, the government contribution to the cost has been reducing from 66.4% in the financial year 2018-2019 to what it is now, this particular year, 48.11%, meaning we are not able to provide the remaining 32% to our public universities. And in the private universities, the figure is even lower at 18.11%. This has led to financial challenges in many of our public universities, and hence that is why we have been able to come up with a new funding system, which we consider will be actually manageable. We are running scholarships.
Stabbed, people who've been beaten black and
what can be done to remove this poison?
Grown an average of 5.5%, and also the contribution an average of 3.1%. And we have been able to use
Kenyans pride themselves on their family values. But recently, another side to the story has come to light.
Vulnerable who will be able to enjoy.
I've always been shaken by cases of sexual and gender-based violence. And over the years, I've seen it become increasingly extreme. How do you move? I'm traveling to Meru County in the heart of central Kenya.
Vulnerable in our society, we consider that the income is almost zero. Extremely needy, they will be able to get a scholarship of about 70%, and the loan of 30%, and the household contribution will be zero, because these are those who have an income of between 0 and 23,000, about 20,000. So they will be able to get up from 23,000 up to around 50. The needy scholarships, we will be able to give 53%, and the loans at the 40%, and the household contribution will be 7%. And finally, the rest needy, anybody we consider enjoying a salary of about 200,000 will be able to get a scholarship of 38%, and if we so wish to get their own of 55%, and the household contribution will be 7%. The new funding model has various strengths that will ensure the sustainability of our public universities, which are currently undergoing a lot of financial challenges, Honorable Speaker. The funding model is student-centered. Universities will no longer be funded in terms of broad figures. The funding model is based on the actual cost of the program being pursued by the student. This will eliminate the risk of underfunding our universities, as was the case under the DUC model. And from out of our analysis, the cost of programs in our private universities vis-a-vis our public universities. Of course, in the various subject areas, we have been able to give examples in the table, like we have given for in the Bachelor of Education and Arts. You can see our private universities we have given for our public universities in the table, like KCA University, Management University of Africa, Kiriri University, and the Islamic University of Kenya. A Bachelor of Arts degree, 77,790, 78,600, 82,350, and for Islamic University of Kenya, 96,000. And of course, our public universities, which one getting access to our public university will be able to access scholarships and other benefits. We have Kibabii, Kisii, Masai Mara, Chuka University, where the same course, the cost is 122,400. We have given a Bachelor of Medicine and Surgery, comparing the public universities plus the private. We have given a Bachelor of Commerce, and I think I don't have to go through each and every university because we have had a comparative analysis between the private and the public, so that even in the portal of COOPS, we are putting the information so that when a parent is choosing to go private, he knows the consequences of the decision that he's taking. And each and every university, we have also been able to provide this fee structure so that the parents and the students will be aware of the amount of fees and how much the government will be able to pay and how much they will be able to pay. Mr. Speaker, sir, there are various other factors that will help to mitigate against any potential undercutting, and they include the demand for a given university and university programs. Besides the cost is one side consideration that anyone wanting to join a university takes into consideration. The institutional and the program plan also play a major role. Public universities are therefore expected to position themselves competitively in the market. The placement exercise will prioritize the filling capacities in public universities before any such consideration to private universities, unless one so chooses, because it also depends on the choice of an individual, and as one said, choices have consequences. There is a specialized program sometimes not available, like the one I said of nursing, where we don't have enough capacity, and therefore private universities will also be able to come in handy, particularly in that particular area. On average, Honorable Speaker, the cost of attending private universities will actually be higher than public universities, because students in public universities will receive government scholarships, as I've said. The scholarships will not be available in private universities. A growing demand for scholarships will attract more students and ensure the sustainability of our public universities. The cash flow in public universities under the new model will be better than under the DUC, because the amounts paid for the scholarship and the loans will be higher. The improved cash flow will enhance the quality of running and the training in our universities, because increased funds will facilitate the funding and the improvement of the running and teaching resources, making the universities more competitive. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, sir.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to thank the Minister for this comprehensive answer. Mr. Speaker, the Minister speaks of the Act, Universities Act, Section 56(1), which talks of COOPS placing government-sponsored students in universities. There is a problem. That's where the problem is. But I also want to put it to the Minister that this specific law does not compel you to place
all the students or any students either in public or private universities. For instance, Mr. Speaker, given the fact that an example of this year, the students you are placing in universities, we have enough capacity in public universities to absorb all the public students. And if you went ahead to do that, there is no law you would have broken, because the Act talks of just a placement of students in universities. So the cartels are moving, and we want to depend on your goodwill. And as a committee, we are coming up with amendments to this particular section of the law to ensure that we continue growing our public universities. Two, Mr. Speaker, the government expects all the students to be aware of the differences between public and private universities, which, I mean, you've not made this, you've not carried out proper awareness. Most of these students don't have information. Some of them in rural areas, when they hear about Strathmore and these private universities, they would think they are very prestigious, and they will not factor in the cost element when they are choosing these universities. Therefore, they are disadvantaged, and they choose some of these universities only to realize later that it was a mistake, and they end up dropping out of university. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, yes. I want also to note and appreciate the minister that he gave an undertaking to this House through the Committee of PIC, Education and Governance, that unless the parent or the student that are deliberately willing to go to private universities, they are going to first deal with students, they are going to first place students in public universities. And we expect that goodwill to continue, because the cartels are also not sleeping, as I asked Ndindi Nyoro's budget committee not to allocate to this, not to allocate money to private universities unless to those continuing students. Thank you, Honorable Speaker, and thank you, the good minister, and I can ask Mheshimiwa.
You have no capacity to ask anybody to ask us.
Sorry, Honorable Speaker.
Yes.
Sorry.
Member, as Majority Leader.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Let me also thank the CS for that answer to that question. Honorable Speaker, you know, the question of public universities is very dear to many members of Parliament, because these universities and university colleges traverse almost all our counties and constituencies. And CS, you might be aware that it is indeed true there are cartels that have been running even certain departments within the Ministry of Education, particularly the university placement services, COOPs, and university funding. And CS, you will note, you just told us that in the next financial year, you will not be funding any new students. But looking at the estimates that were tabled before this House, whereas in the answer that you have given, a total of 3.174 billion was allocated last year and distributed to universities, private universities. In this year's estimates, 4.174 billion has been set aside for the same funding. I'm just trying to reconcile those figures. If then you're not funding new students, why is the money increasing? The money should be decreasing, and decreasing significantly, because you are funding continuing students, and continuing means students who are in first year, second, and third year, because even those who are in fourth year in the last financial year most likely are exiting. Therefore, this budget should be going down by almost a half, not be increased by 1 billion shillings CS. Two, CS, I want to ask you, if you look at your own list, what you have submitted, and I don't want to mention particular universities, but you can tell who are the drivers of these cartels. And you will see the universities that have gotten the largest amount, some 700 plus million shillings, others 350 plus. They commensurate with the proliferation of their colleges around the country to the detriment of public universities. And you will see instances where public universities and public university colleges have been closed and their premises taken over by private universities. CS, we must be honest with each other, that the cartels that took over the ministry, especially the university funding departments and agencies in your ministry, you must tell us now as a house that now that you came from this house to the executive, you must be ruthless in dealing with these cartels. Because it is true, they have not only misled our children to go to private universities to get half-baked education, but they have also enticed innocent students, as Honorable Wamboka says, from villages who do not know what it will take when they get into those universities, and many of them drop out. But even as they drop out, the money that is allocated to those students continues to be taken to those universities, yet the students dropped out of school. CS, I want to ask you probably at a later date, you must tell this house whether your ministry has instigated or instituted any forensic audits to establish the actual number of students attending classes in those private universities. Because I can tell you, CS, and I speak from my own experience in my own constituency, I have had many students seeking to transfer to public universities. Some succeed, others have moved to KMTCs because we are enticed that you can now go and study in this private university nursing. CS, as you are telling us, that they are going to these private universities because they offer nursing and we don't have capacity in our public universities. Why don't we enhance the capacity of our public universities to offer nursing? Instead of sending our students to these private universities, they go drop out after the first year, they join our KMTCs and other tertiary level colleges, but government continues to pump money into businesses and cartels that took over. And I am not ashamed, CS, to say they took over COOPS, they took over the University Funding Board, and I want you, CS, to just mean business, CS. Let me tell you, CS, just mean business. Conduct a forensic audit. Establish, even within the ministry, who are these rings, or cartels that ring around those ministries and manipulate systems to favor private business. And I have nothing against private business. Indeed, some of the most successful universities around the world are private universities. But they do that and they even contribute to the national growth of the economies by even offering scholarships. How many of these private universities have you seen giving Kenyan students scholarships? None. And they are killing our public universities. Yes, I want to beseech you, please, besides establishing and crushing the cartels in COOPS, in the University Funding Board, CS, as you also institute a forensic audit to establish the actual number of students, because you should be paying to individuals who are attending classes in those private universities, not just numbers. What you pay for are numbers, not students who are attending classes on CS. Please, I also want to beg you, CS, in closing, help our public universities to regain their lost glory, like the University of Nairobi. It is embarrassing that there are private universities now that are running the University of Nairobi out of town. True, these same cartels today are celebrating. They are celebrating that the cost of university education in public universities will always be higher than in their private universities. Why? Because of the cost of overheads in public universities. CS, you have a challenge together with your peers in charge of higher education to re-engineer how public universities are also managed, to ensure that they are efficiently managed, governance is proper. Those that have idle assets like land that you can utilize that land to generate more income and make the cost of public universities much cheaper than those of private universities. I submit, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Emase, you had a point of order.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The information I wanted to give to the majority leader is that a reduction was made by the Committee on Education for 1 billion, which we did uphold. We upheld it. So our only concern as budget was what happens to ongoing students? Because they were placed there by the ministry through COOPs. They did not choose to go to the private universities. These students are from our constituencies. In fact, right now, Madam Speaker, we are receiving a lot of Harambee, invitations to raise funds for these students. So our concern as members, can we have the ministry tell us what is going to happen to continuing students, so that if it is for ongoing to complete, provide sufficient funding for the ongoing students to complete as we change the model. But we've advised the fathers, the budget committee, that the ministry carries out an audit to establish exact number of continuing students so that we fund the correct number of continuing students. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Njoro.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this chance to contribute. Having listened to what members of parliament have said, let me confirm to this House, Madam Speaker, if there is pain in this country, it is in Njoro constituency, Nakuru County. The biggest institution which has raised many women and men in big institutions in this country. It is over 95 dead. My first question to the CS today, how soon can he resurrect the dying Egerton University? Madam Speaker, allow me to say this. The pain with the lecturers, the pain with the investors, the pain with suppliers, the pain within all the surrounding communities, it is so much. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I'm just asking, let us just get the answer. How soon is it going to be raised? The higher education institutions, Madam Speaker, are really dying in this country. We can no longer shy away, Madam Speaker. Let us get the answer. Let us now walk the talk. We can no longer sit again, Madam Speaker, and continue watching the pain which our people are undergoing. And lastly, Madam Speaker, I am asking a question to the CS again. We have so many TVET in this country. The government, which is led by His Excellency the President right now, they are intending to empower youths. How do we empower youths when even the TVET we constructed by contributing CDF funds, they are not even fully equipped? Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Baringo North, Honourable Joseph Makila. Let's make it brief so that other people can...
Yeah, I will be very brief, Madam Speaker. A quick one, now that we are talking about university, I would like to ask the Cabinet Secretary that there are teachers who marked the KCSE almost 8 months ago, and they have not been paid, and the students are about to join university. What plans do you have to the teachers of Kenya who marked the KCSE 2022? Secondly, Madam Speaker, is the Minister for Education, a good friend, when he came here for the first time, Cabinet Secretary, you made a pronunciation. And some teachers are not listening, and I'm told you also made the same in Mombasa. We said KCSE certificates that are held in schools be released. Can we have therefore the circular and make a public pronouncement in a radio and a television so that the hustlers who were able to complete school will be able to take their certificates? Because there is no relationship between KCSE certificate and fees, because it was paid by NEC, and it has no debt at all. And finally, Madam Speaker, is on the issue of congestion. Madam Speaker, one of the premier schools in Kenya, where I'm a parent, Moi Girls,
I beseech you, Waziri, and your peers, to visit Moikals. The classrooms were built during colonial time, and therefore there are excess students, and their lab, their computer lab got banned. Could the minister save the only premier institution of culture in Kenya? And finally, CS, my good CS, there is a school in my constituency called Yatia. That school, the workers have not been paid for the last almost 2 years because the school is unable to get income because the students who are in that school are reduced to 31 because of banditry. What plans do you have to ensure that Yatia Secondary School is brought back to normal because it saves the children in pastoral community? The other things, Madam Speaker, I will visit the CS to share with the Permanent Secretary. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Nyando.
Madam Speaker, I thank you very much for the opportunity, and again thank the CS for coming to join us in the chambers to answer to our concerns. Honourable Speaker, I have got a matter that sits at the core of my heart, and it is a matter that I have pursued times more than number to no end, and I'm very glad that the CS is here today. He can help to fast track or to give a substantive answer today. Honourable Speaker, Nyando constituency has got 2 sub-counties, Kadibo sub-county and Nyando sub-county, Honourable Speaker. Nyando sits between 2 constituencies, that is Muhoroni and Nyakach. Honourable Speaker, these 2 constituencies benefit from hardship allowance. We have had a higher hemorrhage of teachers from Nyando constituency to these 2 sub-counties, Madam Speaker, or these 2 constituencies. Madam Speaker, there are certain schools within Nyando, such as Kochieng Primary and Oren, that only have 2 teachers each out of 8 classrooms, with all the many subjects that have to be undertaken by students, Madam Speaker. A multi-agency team visited my constituency, Nyando.
I think let's not tell the story, just get on to exactly what you want.
Yes, cutting across the 2 sub-counties, Honourable Speaker. And they did give a report, which was a seal of approval for Nyando to be gazetted as a hardship zone, Honourable Speaker. Now, we are disenfranchising these students by disruptions. As soon as a teacher reports in Nyando, they're already applying for transfers to these 2 neighboring constituencies, Madam Speaker.
Okay,
I would kindly ask, as I finish, Madam Speaker, because in the interest of time, I kindly ask Waziri to get in touch with his counterpart at the public service, Honorable Aisha Jumwa, to kindly have Nyando gazetted as a hardship zone soonest possible, so that we do not disenfranchise lives of children and teachers that work tirelessly within Nyando constituency. And I thank you so much for the opportunity, Madam Speaker.
Okay. The Honourable Member for Tindiret.
Thank you, Honourable Madam Speaker.
And
first of all,
Madam, also be brief, please.
I want to be brief, Madam Speaker. First of all, I want to laud the CS for the good contributions that is made in the House this afternoon. But, Honourable Speaker, I want to just agree with the Majority Leader and the Chair for PIC and Education and Governance on the private universities. When the issue came before our committee, Madam Speaker, the private universities had increased funding by up to 4.1 billion shillings. My committee sat and we realized that that was actually very wrong. And I want to agree with members that the CS should realize that if there are some cartels working with the University Funding Board and the Department of Higher Education, he should take action. Because we reduced that money from 4.1 to 2.4. But we asked again the ministry to furnish us with the list of students in those universities. But I've realized, Madam Speaker, that the number of students are very few. In fact, we are even recommending a House amendment where we need to reduce that money further again by 600 million, so that that money can be used for the SNEs, actually the special needs students who are in some schools across the country, who are actually physically challenged, who have mental issues, and that money can fund them very well. We have incomplete TTIs across the country, and yet some private investors want to take this money. So, Madam Speaker, I want to urge the House that when we bring that amendment, or reducing the figure further from 2.4 billion by 600 million, you support it, so that actually we do it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I think Honorable Waziri will give you an opportunity, but I realize that most of them were like on the one question. They were on the same topic, so it will be easy.
Thank you very much, Honorable Madam Speaker. I wish to start with private universities. Honorable members have been very categorical on this, and the government is not changing its mind. And I think I even came before the committee and I gave an answer that unless a parent or a student makes a choice to go to a private university, of which the consequences will be that the government will not be able to provide funds to that particular university, as government, as much as possible, we are going to sponsor and support those who are joining our public universities. Two, Honorable Madam Speaker, you are aware that in order to make higher education accessible, and particularly university education, this administration is starting a national open university, and we are starting with 8 programs for the National Open University. I did request the Committee on Education and the Committee on Budget, in actual fact, where we require a budget, where we require support of this House is on the National Open University, because it will offer programs. You can be able to get your degree, your PhD from the comfort of your house. So we request, even when it comes to this House for approval, that Honorable Madam Speaker, you fast track, and as I've said, if the allocation to our private universities was 4.1, it is the responsibility of this House to revise the figure downwards. Even 2.4, I think, as my chair of education has said, Honorable Madam Speaker, we require to look at that figure critically, because one other thing we are doing, not only for private universities, but even for public universities, Honorable Chairperson, we found that we don't have the proper figures. We don't have proper data. So we are starting something we call information management system, an equivalent of NEMIS that we have in the Directorate of Basic, such that we can be able to monitor the movement of students, may it be in public universities or our private universities, such that we don't give funds to people who are not in those universities. So we are starting that particular system, but in the meantime, we will also be able to carry out a forensic audit so that we are able to establish the exact number of government-sponsored students in our private universities. Concerning TVETs, Honorable Speaker, members here are aware that we have 3 categories. There are 71 of our TVET institutions which are complete, but have not been provided with the necessary required equipment in order for them to be able to undertake their respective mandates. And these ones, the negotiation with China, we are soon getting the equipment, because we have signed the contract for provision of those equipments, and I hope that in 3 months' time, at the maximum, we should be able to get and access those equipments, and they will be given the 71 TVET institutions. The second category is institutions which were undergoing construction, and because of one reason or another, funding was not adequate, And I think we have requested this August House to provide us with the funds so that we can be able to provide those ongoing in complete TVET institutions so that we can also be able to complete them and subsequently provide them with the equipment so that they can be able to start. The last category is the 52 TVET institutions, because we have constituencies where we don't have a TVET institution, and I think the amount of allocation you have made is 1 billion this financial year, 2023-2024, and when the funds are provided to us, it means we will be able to do about 20. We cannot be able to do 52 at one go. We do about 20, come first with the kind of requirements we require. We will be able to cater and accommodate those constituencies which come first, and then the others we will be able to cater in the remaining, in the other financial years. Nyando constituency, Honorable Speaker, I have gone around. I was in Omabay County where I did encounter that problem, Nyatike, and I think I also went to a place in Indarawa. The equivalent, the weather conditions, the climatic conditions are equivalent to the neighboring constituency in Laikipia, and those that had come to my attention, because we normally make a recommendation to the Ministry of Interior, and it is the Ministry of Interior with that of Public Service which gives approval. So, Honorable Member for Nyando, if you write to me, then we can be able to make the recommendation to the relevant ministry for approval for the area to be considered as an hardship area. And if there is any such area, you write to us, and then we will be able to take it up with the other relevant ministries. Again, any cartels, I think I cannot be captured by any cartel. A man who is 6 feet tall, and at my age, Honorable Speaker, my desire and my passion and my commitment is to serve this country. So I'm beyond that, and my officers, my PSS are here. They know my stand, and we are not going to entertain anything like that. But again, the other rider, the other thing I want to mention about private universities, I've had a meeting and engagement with all the vice chancellors of private universities, and I said, I'm not about to change the mind. The government has made a stand, and that is what is going to carry the day. But there are 3 private universities which even don't require government funding, and that is Strathmore. Over the years, students going to Strathmore College, government does not send funding. The other such university is Aga Khan University. Government at no time have we sent any single cent to that university, and you can be able to confirm that from the table. The USIU, we also never send a single cent. In actual fact, Strathmore University, the administration was telling me the demand they have of students is even much more higher than they can be able to accommodate. So we are asking the other private universities to take the kind of measures these other 3 universities have taken, so that they don't have to rely on the government for funding. My friend, the Njoro Member of Parliament, Honorable Speaker, because I have the information of any individual university, and such other university that I have a lot of information about is our Egerton University. We are asking universities that they go for a niche specialization, because Egerton used to be very good in agriculture and livestock, but now it came to a time where our universities are going for anything and everything, doing each and every program. But the program that we have in Egerton, like all other universities, is not on management and governance, but funding. The amount that we give Egerton University in the form of capitation each and every month, Honorable Speaker, is 185 million. The amount that is supposed to be paid in the form of salaries in any given month in Egerton University is 221. And hence, for almost the last 1 year, they have been paying 60% of the salaries because of the amount of capitation that we give them. It's a matter that we are trying to address as a government so that we see whether we can be able to improve the level of capitation from what it is now to the specific figure that they incur in each and every month. The other thing that we are trying to do, and I think we are coming to each other, because we have governance management issues with some of our universities. We have had several meetings with the vice chancellors, and I think we have agreed on the way forward. We have had meetings with the chairs, the chairmen, chairpersons of university councils, and even the ones we have chosen ever since we came into this administration. We have undertaken a qualitative process. If a university is in your constituency and you find we have chosen people who are not up to the required standard, then come to me, particularly the ones I've done, because I do a lot of due diligence. The ones we have chosen in the 11 universities, I think there are men and women who are equal to the task, and they will be able to undertake the mandate of the university and bring our university and also regain the rustic glory of our university. Particularly what the honorable member for Kikuyu said, most of us went to the university, and you have seen I've made changes, and in that university there's a new chairperson and the new members of the council, whereas others, if you go to Pwani universities, the caliber, the people we had in the councils, you get 22, 23, my friend knows. So we have had changes for the better, and I'm sure we will regain our rustic glory. We will be able to have quality education in our universities. Our Kenya National Examination Council, Honorable Speaker, it is this house which is going to assist me as a ministry to allocate the funds, because we have pending bills amounting to over 2 billion now. And I think in a supplementary one, we have made an appeal to this house to allocate the funds, because we want to pay our examiners better. We want to pay our suppliers and our contractors. So kindly, we hope you will be able to consider and allocate us funds. Release of certificates, members, please help me, because we have made it very clear to our principals, because the Kenya National Examination Act makes it very clear that you cannot withhold a certificate for any other reason. So in case we have any such case, bring it to my attention, and we will be able to take action, because there are those Kenyans, even once we issue directives, sometimes they don't respond in a way that they are supposed to. So kindly, in case you have any such cases, bring it to my attention or to my peers, and for sure we will be able to take action on the same. Yatia Secondary School, honorable member, I think some of these cases have an open door policy. Members, you know that, and my peers here know that all of us in the midst of education, we have open door policy, such that any member of parliament coming, we will be able to engage. Whatever you want us to do as a ministry, we will be able to have it done. Thank you, honorable speakers.
Thank you very much. I now take this opportunity to thank you, Mr. Cabinet Secretary, for the time that you have taken in patiently explaining the answers to the members of parliament. Thank you and have a good evening. Next order.
Order number 9, special motion, consideration of nominee for appointment as the Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya.
Chairperson for Finance Committee.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to move that, taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning, in its report on the vetting of the nominee for the appointment of the Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, the 6th of June 2023, and pursuant to Section 13(1) of the Central Bank of Kenya Act, Cap 491, and Section 8(1) of the Public Appointments.
Hold on, honorable members, do allow the PS to go to the waiting room. You can engage him there.
And pursuant to Section 13(1) of the Central Bank of Kenya Act, Cap 491, and Section 8(1) of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011, that this House approves the appointment of Dr. Kamau Thuge, CBS, as the Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, the Central Bank, Article 231(1) of the Constitution of Kenya establishes the Central Bank of Kenya. The objects and functions of the Central Bank of Kenya are set out in Article 231(2) of the Constitution, read together with Sections 4A of the Central Bank of Kenya Act. The Bank, Honorable Speaker, shall be responsible for formulating monetary policy, promoting price stability, issuing currency, and performing other functions conferred on it by the Central Bank of Kenya as per Cap 491. Section 13 of the Central Bank of Kenya Act 491 establishes the office of the Governor, who shall be appointed by the President through a transparent and competitive process, and with the approval of the National Assembly. The Governor shall be the principal representative of the bank. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Section 13 of the Central Bank of Kenya Act, and the Public Service Commission invited applications from suitable candidates and qualified candidates to apply for the position of Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. This advertisement was published in the print media and on the Commission's on the bank's website, on the Commission's website on 30th March 2023. The application period closed on the 19th of April 2023, with a total of 24 persons submitting their applications for consideration. 6 candidates, Honorable Speaker, were shortlisted on the 28th of April 2023, and the names of the shortlisted candidates were published in the print media and the Commission's website on the 3rd of May 2023. The advertisement, including an interview schedule and an invitation to the shortlisted candidates to attend interviews. The Commission conducted the interviews on the 9th of May. The chairperson of the Public Service Commission submitted the names of the candidates in order of merit for consideration of appointment to the position of the Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order number 42(1) of the National Assembly Standing Orders, the Speaker of the National Assembly conveyed a message to the House from His Excellency the President of the Republic of Kenya on the nomination of Dr. Kamau Thuge, CBS, for appointment as the Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, in accordance with the provision of Standing Order 42.3c of the National Assembly, the Speaker referred the message to the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning for consideration. Honorable Speaker, the Clerk of the National Assembly placed an advertisement in local dailies on Friday, the 19th of May 2023, notifying and inviting the nominee and the public of the approval hearing on Tuesday, 30th of May 2023, in accordance with Section 6.3 of the Act. Further, Honorable Speaker, the notification invited members of the public to submit any information on the suitability of the nominee in accordance with Section 6.9 of the Public Appointment Parliamentary Approval Act. Honorable Speaker, Section 13 of the Central Bank of Kenya provides what the role of the Central Bank Governor does, and also provides the constitutional requirements for one to be considered as a qualified candidate for the Central Bank Governor. Honorable Speaker, for the record, the committee did conduct a vetting process for the nominee for the Central Bank Governor, Dr. Kamau Thuge, and were guided by the following statutes. 1, the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, number 33 of 2011, Chapter 6 of the Constitution on matters of leadership and integrity, the Leadership and Integrity Act, Cap 182, the Central Bank of Kenya Act, Cap 491, the Public Service and the Public Service Values Principles Act number 1A of 2015, and Honorable Speaker, the Public Officer Ethics Act, Cap 183. Honorable Speaker, the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 33 of 2011, Section 7 provides for the issues which the National Assembly is supposed to consider in relation to the nomination. 1, the procedure used to arrive at the nominee. 2, the constitutional statutory requirements relating to the officer in question. And 3, the suitability of the nominee for the appointment proposed, having regard to whether the nominee's abilities, experiences, qualities meet the needs of the body to which the nomination is being made. Section 6 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act provides direction in the conduct of approval hearings, which are that the approval hearings shall focus on the candidate's academic credentials, professional training and experience, personal integrity, and background as per Section 6(7), Honorable Speaker. The criteria specified in the schedule shall be used by a committee during an approval hearing for the purposes of vetting a candidate as enshrined on Section 6(8) of the Act, Honorable Speaker. Any person prior to the approval hearing may, with their written statement on oath, provide the clerk evidence contesting the suitability of a candidate to hold the office to which the candidate has been nominated as per Section 6(9). A candidate may, Honorable Speaker, at any time by notice in writing, address to the clerk withdraw the approval process, and candidate's nomination shall end as contained on Section 6(10), Honorable Speaker. The period for consideration of the nomination is spelled out on Article 6, on Section 8(1) of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, and that provides that the committee shall throw together the nomination and table their report to the House for debate and decision-making within 28 days from the date on which the notification of nomination was given. Section 9, Honorable Speaker, stipulates that where the Houses do not meet on the prescribed timelines, the nominee shall be deemed to have been approved. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Section 6(8) of the Act, the criteria for vetting is comprehensively pursued in the questionnaire and the schedule of the Act that provides the requirements that these candidates are supposed to provide for the committee for the approval, Honorable Speaker. The constitutional provisions that the committee used in the vetting process and arriving at the suitability of the candidate of one Dr. Kamau Thuge for the position of Governor of Central Bank is Chapter 6 of the Constitution, Honorable Speaker. Chapter 6 of the Constitution of Kenya, Honorable Speaker, Article 10(2) of the Constitution on National Values and Principles of Governance, Article 118 of the Constitution, Article 124(4) on the parliamentary approval of public hearings, the Leadership and Integrity Act, the Central Bank Act, Cap 491, the Public Service Values and Principles Act, the Public Officer Ethics and the Ethics Act, Honorable Speaker. Having placed the nomination, the advert on the vetting of the nominee for Central Bank Governor, we did ask the several institutions as outlined by Chapter 6 of the Constitution to do a letter to the National Assembly indicating the suitability of Dr. Kamau Thuge as contained in Chapter 6 of the Constitution. These institutions are the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, the Kenya Revenue Authority, the Higher Education Loans Board, the Directorate of Criminal Investigations, and the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties. Honorable Speaker, I confirm that we did receive notification and letters from all these bodies, that is the EACC, KRA, HELB, DCI, and Office of Registrar of Political Parties, clearing the Dr. Kamau Thuge as being a suitable candidate as outlined by Chapter 6 of the Constitution. Prior to the meeting, prior to the approval hearing, Honorable Speaker, on Tuesday, 20th of May, we held a pre-vetting exercise and agreed on the way to carry out the nomination, the vetting exercise as contained in our Constitution, Honorable Speaker. During the hearings, Honorable Speaker, we were able to identify the following: that one, Mr. Kamau Thuge is a Kenyan citizen by birth, of ID number 276455149, and was born on the first day of August of 1957 in Kiambu County and does not hold any dual citizenship. Honorable Speaker, we are able to identify and prove that one Dr. Thuge holds a doctorate degree in economics, a master's degree in economics from Johns Hopkins University, Maryland, USA, having graduated in 1992 for his PhD and 1982 for his master's respectively, and is also a holder of a bachelor's degree in economics from Colorado College, Colorado, USA in 1980. Honorable Speaker, the nominee did inform the committee that he had many years of experience working as an economist since 1985, having started with the International Monetary Fund for over 20 years, and the 12 years he worked at the Kenya National Treasury. Honorable Speaker, Dr. Thuge's specialization was in designing macroeconomic policies, fiscal and monetary and exchange rate, and financing and financial programming. This model was critical in ensuring that the macroeconomic framework involving the real sector, fiscal and monetary sectors, and the balance of payments were eternally consistent to serve as a platform for rapid economic growth, poverty reduction, and wealth creation. Dr. Thuge informed the committee that currently he holds the position of being the senior advisor to the president, head of fiscal and budget affairs, having been appointed in 2022. He served previously as a principal secretary at the National Treasury between 2013 and 2019, as a senior economic advisor to the Ministry of Finance between 2010 and 2013. He served also as the deputy division chief of the International Monetary Fund between 2008 and 2010. He also served as economic secretary and the head of economic affairs, Department of National Treasury Kenya between 2005 and 2008. He was also the head of fiscal and monetary affairs department at the National Treasury between 2004 and 2005. He was also the economist, a senior economist with IMF between 1985 and 2004. And before then, Honorable Speaker, after his PhD, he taught at the University of Franklin and Marshall in Pennsylvania in USA. Honorable Speaker, the nominee informed the committee that he is an accomplished professional in the areas of macroeconomics, public service, which has given him the requisite skills, knowledge, and competence in the financial service sector, suitable for the position we were vetting him for, that of the governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. Honorable Speaker, on matters of integrity and leadership, Dr. Thuge informed the committee that in 2019, when he was serving as a principal secretary for National Treasury, the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution preferred charges against him and his cabinet secretary in the National Treasury in relation to the construction of Aurora and Kimorel dams under the State Department of Regional Development. Honorable Speaker, key to note is in 2021, the Office of Director of Public Prosecution terminated the charges against him while turning him into a state witness. And this matter, Honorable Speaker, is pending in court, and the candidate has attended the court proceedings when he is required to do so. The nominee also indicated that he has never been adversely mentioned in any investigation report of Parliament or any committee of inquiry in the 3 years that he served as a principal secretary for the National Treasury. Our nominee, Honorable Speaker, is worth 450 million shillings. He does not foresee any conflict of interest because he does not hold any shares in any banks. He has never been a member of any political party. On asked on what the vision for the nominees of the bank, Dr. Thuge informed us that he noted that the supervision of banks is on real-time basis. Since the digital credit providers were already on board, he oversees a situation where they're going to be a real-time basis oversight of the banks, and especially with the emergence of the digital credit providers and the enormous growth in fintech institutions, Honorable Speaker. The nominee also informed the committee that if appointed the central bank governor, he would endeavor to deal with key issues and on put task on several areas, For example, on the issue of diaspora remittances and how to stabilize the current exchange rate, where the rate of Kenya shillings has really depreciated against the dollar, the nominee informed the committee that he would advise National Treasury to float a local dollar-denominated bond, where the people, especially in our diaspora, would be notified through the State Department of Diaspora Affairs to subscribe. And this process, he oversees, would stabilize our Kenya shillings as well as inviting domestic investment. On putting to task on whether the current system of importation of our oil in local currency has eased pressure on the dollar, the nominee did inform us that this model has reduced the demand on the dollar by $500 million, which means, therefore, that were it not for the consideration of importing our oil from USD to Kenya shillings, then the current depreciation of our Kenya shillings, we are saying, could be way worse. When we asked about the financial services innovations, the nominee noticed and appreciated that there has been an emergence of digital currencies across the world, and this is a concern of the bank, and the bank needs to act in speed to provide the correct regulatory framework, not to just condemn the emergence of these digital currencies like bitcoins and cryptocurrencies. On asked about the stability of the banking sector, where we have had several banks do collapse, the nominee suggested that there needs to look at how to refinance these banks and perhaps possibilities of having a merger within the banking sector to prevent further closure of these particular banks. But he, however, notified the committee that closing a bank should be the last resort, because this leads to mistrust in the sector, to loss of customers' deposits, and loss of jobs for those people in that particular sector. Honorable Speaker, when we put him to task on the high volume of non-performing loans in our banking sector, he did note this is a result of the contraction we have seen in the manufacturing and real estate sector, especially following the post-recovery from COVID-19, Honorable Speaker. But he noticed that the private sector had reduced from also 33% to 24%, and if approved to be the next governor of Central Bank, Dr. Duge promised that he would increase credit to the private sector while making sure that we do not destabilize the economy. We put the nominee to task, Honorable Speaker, on the big debate in the country on the Housing Development Fund levy. And the nominee noted that the proposed housing levy in the finance, as contained in the finance bill proposal for 2023, because that clause 76 would actually lead to the most needed job creation of this particular country, and therefore spur economic growth by providing the required jobs for young people across the country, Honorable Speaker. With those many remarks, Honorable Speaker, I would like to make the following recommendations. That one, the nominee's academic qualification and experience comply with the requirements of Section 6(7) of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, number 33 of 2011, and Section 13C1 of the Central Bank of Kenya Act, Cap 491. Honorable Speaker, two, that as stipulated in Article 75(1) of the Constitution, the nominee did not show any conflict of interest. That three, the nominee is not a member of any political party. That the nominee meets the qualification of Chapter 6 of the Constitution, and we therefore recommend that this Honorable House, Honorable Speaker, approves the candidature of one Dr. Kamau Thuge to be the governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. With that, I beg to move, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, I ask and Honorable Chair, I ask that our Vice Chair, Honorable Ambassador Benjamin Lagat, to second.
Madam Speaker, I want to say that the Chair has given the history and the story of the of Dr. Tuge in details. And I don't wish to belabor the points, Madam Speaker. I only wish to confirm that that is the committee's report, and I second, Madam Speaker.
Hold on, members. Give one person. Where is that list? Okay. Okay, honorable members, I now propose the question that taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning in its report on the vetting of a nominee for the appointment as Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 6th June 2023, and pursuant to Section 13(1) of the Central Bank of Kenya Act, Cap 491, and Section 8(1) of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act of 2011. This House approves the appointment of Dr. Kamau Thuge, CBS, as Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. I now put the question that taking into consideration the findings of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning in its report on the vetting of a nominee for the appointment as the Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, 6th June 2023, and pursuant to Section 13(1) of the Central Bank of Kenya Act, Cap 491, and Section 8(1) of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act 2011, this House approves the appointment of Dr. Kamau Thuge, CBS, as the Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? Nay. The ayes have it. Next order.
Order number 10, the National Government Constituency Development Fund Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 13 of 2023, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the National Government Constituencies Development Fund Act.
Next order.
Order number 11, motion, consideration of the first of the budget estimates for the financial year 2023-2024. General debate, day one.
I call upon the chairperson of the Budget and Appropriations Committee.
I have put the question.
You may proceed, Chairperson.
Okay. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, for this opportunity to move the report for the Budget and Appropriations Committee in regards to the estimates, budget estimates for financial year 2023-2024. Madam Speaker, before I move the content and the substantive issues, allow me first of all to really thank all the members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, and especially led by the Vice Chair, the Honorable Mary Emase, and all the 27 members of the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Madam Speaker, also, allow me to really thank all the departmental chairs. And because today is just debate, Madam Speaker, we'll be putting the question later on. There are some things I would really want to go to record. And number one is to thank all the departmental chairs singularly because many times, Madam Speaker, Budget and Appropriations Committee does the work of coming here to bring the report, but the bulk of the work is done by these chairs. Madam Speaker, I want to thank the Honorable Alice Nganga, and these are the chairs for various departmental committees, the Honorable Kareba Mushangi, the Honorable Mutunga Kanyuithia, the Honorable Vincent Musioka Kawaya, the Honorable Gabriel Togoyo, the Honorable KJ Kerie, who is here, the Honorable David Gikaria, the Honorable Nelson Koech, the Honorable Kagongo Bowen, Julius Kiboet Mary, the Honorable James Gakuya, the Honorable KK from Molo, the Honorable Peter Rochakapong, the Honorable Joas Nyamoko, the Honorable Robert Pokose, Doctor, the Honorable Wanyama, the Honorable Johanna Ngeno, Honorable GK Kariuki, the Honorable Gitonga Murugara from Tharaka-Nithi County, and the Honorable Japheth Kareke Bioki. Madam Speaker, I have done this deliberately because these chairs, Madam Speaker, and all the memberships of these departmental committees.
Honorable Member, do you want to formally move the motion? Then you can go to the submissions.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And even before I continue, I wish first to move the report. And therefore, even before the debate, having thanked the honorable members, Madam Speaker, I wish first to move that this House adopts the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on budget estimates for the national government, the judiciary, and Parliament for the financial year 2023-2024, laid on the table of the House on Tuesday, today, 6th June 2023, and pursuant to the provisions of Article 221 of the Constitution, Section 39 of the Public Finance Management Act 2012, and Standing Order 239, 1, approve the issuance of a sum of Kenya shillings 2,308,410,704,957 from the Consolidated Fund to meet the expenditure during the year ending 30th June 2024 in respect of the votes contained in the first schedule, subject to paragraph 4, that is Committee of Supply. 2, make the policy resolutions as contained in the second schedule of the order paper. 3, makes financial resolutions as contained in the second schedule of the report. And order that the Speaker do now leave the chair to facilitate the consideration of the said budget estimates with respect to each vote and program in the Committee of Supply as contemplated under Standing Order 240, that is the consideration of estimates in the Committee of Supply. Madam Speaker, I seek to move.
You can proceed with the submissions if you have any.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Speaker, I took the first chance to congratulate the many men and women who have put a lot of man-hour into the job because it's very important. And Madam Speaker, I wish to also, in the same spirit, thank the team we have in the National Treasury, and especially the CS Professor Jogona Dongo, and the PS Dr. Chris Kipto, and the entire team from the Treasury, because we have been working very coherently with that team. Madam Speaker, also I want to thank our very competent Parliamentary Budget Office, which the team which have been very facilitative in regards to the technical issues insofar as consideration of the estimates is concerned. Madam Speaker, I wish first to lay the background on this process. And Madam Speaker, I do so because it is important for us to move together as a House. Madam Speaker, I, being the chair of the Budget and Appropriations Committee, we work very closely with the Committee of Finance, led by the very able chair, Honorable Kimani Kuria. Madam Speaker, also we work very closely with the chair of Debt and Privatization, Madam Speaker, Honorable Shurie, and the team. And the reason of mentioning these committees, Madam Speaker, is because actually initially this was just one committee. This is the three committees, two of them, that is the finance and debt. Madam Speaker, they have the most difficult job because they are the two teams that have to deal with the supply side of money, the revenue side of the budget. Madam Speaker, Budget and Appropriations Committee then plugs in terms of only the expenditure side. And therefore, I really want to congratulate even the two teams from the finance and debt for the great work they have been doing, and especially making our work very easy by making sure that they avail the requisite resources that the Budget and Appropriations Committee needs to appropriate and allocate to several programs. Madam Speaker, I wish now to go to the issues. And as we go to the issues, I want this Honorable House and the members and Kenyans at large to appreciate the circumstances at which we have been making this budget, Madam Speaker, and especially the estimates for financial year 2023-2024. One, Madam Speaker, in the recent past, we've had a very severe drought in this country, Madam Speaker, that has cut off the supply of food, Madam Speaker. Around the same period, because of the same, we have seen, and especially for the last 1-2 years, we have seen an escalation in terms of inflation, Madam Speaker, the figures going down, whereas at the current situation, it is not as bad as it has been. In the past medium term, Madam Speaker, the case has not been very good. Madam Speaker, also, around the same circumstances, we have been facing global inflation, which is not just affecting our country, Kenya, but affecting majority of the economies of the world. Madam Speaker, also, I wish also to mention one very specific matter that has been very bad to majority of the emerging economies. Madam Speaker, there is a phrase that when the economy of the US coughs, then the other emerging economies, and even the developing economies, they catch a cold. Madam Speaker, out of the interventions that were made by the US government, of especially giving COVID-19 checks, Madam Speaker, to spur the economy, this led to runaway inflation in the US. And for the Fed to contain the same, they have had to raise interest rates for 10 consecutive times, Madam Speaker, to the current level of 5.2% in terms of the Fed rate. Madam